Shri R.R. Swine, who is joining us right now, even as Bharat salutes its brave hearts. Swine Saab, Namaste. This is Anand here. Thank you for speaking with us. My first question to you, and what's your current assessment of the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir, sir?
At the outset, my tributes to the martyrs and the brave officers and soldiers of the valiant Indian Army. Every single policeman and policewoman of Jammu and Kashmir Police grieves, and they are determined that shoulder to shoulder they would fight and avenge and make the enemy and the perpetrators pay a very heavy price. Coming to the assessment part of it, the adversary is taking advantage of a distinct advantage which he has in terms of topography. As I have been saying elsewhere, numbers are limited. The groups of four, in sizes of four, in 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 groups, which they have managed to infiltrate and seeing the gaps. But we continue to have the upper hand. This loss is certainly regrettable and it's unfortunate. But having said this, the shelf life of the terrorists in Jammu province is very limited. See, what happens is that the Jammu province in terms of area is almost 2.5 times than Kashmir. And it doesn't have a flat land. The entire district of Doda, Kishtwar, Ramban, and vast stretches of Udhampur, Rajouri, Kuch, they are absolutely hilly and mountainous. Very, very, not mountainous in the ordinary sense of the term, but the Himalayan, great Western Himalayan mountain sub-ranges are there. Now, what happens is for 3 to 4 months, usually the upper reaches, which are otherwise snow-clad, opens up vast stretches of forest and broken land, opens up, and villagers from distant parts, they migrate to these places and stay there in very temporary hotbeds. It is this place where they are hiding, these forests, and they manage to get their food at gunpoint and then go back to the mountains. So they know that this is a small stretch of about 3 to 4 months. So they have been inducted in a special operation kind of a thing by the adversary, in which it's like operating beyond the enemy line. So 25, 30 odd chaps, heavily armed, and I can tell you that the information flow is also very good. There is absolutely no support base in the nature of a separatist movement in Jammu. So therefore, that actually is our strength. That continues to be in our favor. As I talk to you, if you go to any village in Doda or in Kishtwar, Ramban or Udhampur, you would find that the villagers, starting across religion, they would command. They have been extending support. They are praying for, they are pleading for more village defense groups to arm themselves and fight along with us. So therefore, to have a kind of a feeling that as if we are not in control is actually not true. So therefore, that actually is the overall background in which we are operating, and some of the details obviously cannot be discussed as to how we plan to take on the terrorists and deny them the advantages which nature and topography is giving them.
But Mr. Swine, the issue about things spiraling out of control comes because we have lost 9 brave hearts between Kathua and Doda, and in a very short span of time. So how have they been able to enter this far, and why? We'll try and connect with Mr. R.R. Swine in just a bit. I think he'll just join us back any moment now. We were in conversation with Sri R.R. Swine, and let's just quickly, they're all killed in action. 9 soldiers between Kathua and Doda. 48 soldiers have been killed in action in the Jammu region itself. If we were to look at the last 32 months, it's a staggering number, and this is a cause for worry. And we once again need to look at why this is happening. Let's quickly try and understand the inputs that we have so far, even as Sri Swine joins us back in a bit, that This entire infiltration front, and this is our exclusive news break by our senior editor Manoj Kumar Gupta, Group Editor Security. 50 foreign terrorists are operating in the Jammu region. Infiltration has been done via tunnels in the Samba sector. 20 to 25 terrorists are operating in the Doda area from the Punjab province of Pak. That's where they've entered. The infiltrations in the last 3 months have been via Sundarbani. 25 terrorists are in the Riasi and the Uri region, and terrorists have been sighted in Jammu also near Akhnur. Terrorists are using the Shakargarh, Sialkot and Zafarwals as the launch pads from the other side, and that's from where they are actually making their way in. The infiltrations are via Bagh, Kotli, Nalli, Samani, Tarkundi and Nakyal. These are the areas from where they are actually infiltrating and they're getting in. Now this is something which needs to be hemmed or stemmed immediately at the earliest. They've already got in. There should be no more that should come in. They're also taking advantage of this entire long border and LOC area. That's more than nearly about 500 kilometers of border plus LOC. The BSF has foiled infiltration bids via drones last year, but now tunnels have been dug along the IB and LOC, and somehow they are able to make it onto Indian soil, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, there is also this entire aspect of a changing terror strategy. Is Jammu the new terror battleground? That's the big question, because there is weapons, ammunition, drugs that have been pushed through Pak Punjab region, and that's where these drone sorties have been used over the last 18 odd months, if not more. Attack in the Doda part is part of Pakistan's new strategy, where they're shifting the theatre of action, moving away from the Kashmir Valley into the Jammu region. There are aggressive attacks on the forces part, which is also part of the ploy overall to try and shake the forces, try and push some recalibration and perhaps redeployment from the border areas from LAC back into the Jammu region, and thereby easing the tensions or perhaps relaxing certain porous areas, creating certain gaps at the LOC, at the IB and perhaps even at the LAC, where the Chinese are feeling the heat of and the might of our forces. Almost 50 foreign tourists are ready to strike, and that's what Mr. Swain was saying, that at least 20 to 25 are operating in this region, and they have come with a short task. They have come behind enemy lines and they are trying to act here. But there is a counter plan which is in place. We're just about to quiz him on that. We'll just check whether he should be joining us soon. There has just been, as he was joining us live, there was a power outage. Now the ISI is under pressure with the thinning of the OGW network in the Kashmir Valley. But is there an OGW network that is operating in the Jammu region? That's the question. Meanwhile, the ISI has bid to use the challenge of deploying forces in the Jammu region is another concern. More deployments in the Jammu region to fight back challenge, that could be a counter era. More importantly, in the security grid, it's been the combined effort of all the forces, the army, the para, and also the J&K police. All of them have come in and lent their shoulder to perhaps work this entire grid out effectively. Can they do it in this vast spread out region of the Jammu region? That's the big question. They are in action mode to neutralize terror groups, and obviously the recalibration would have happened. The terrorists have used this time that would take perhaps for our forces, our think tank, to recalibrate, figure out the best mechanism and put it into force. That's when the terrorists were sighted on 9 July by army men, and that's when the forces were deployed to nab these terrorists. A captain, 3 other army personnel were killed in action during this gunfight and this encounter. Jaish groups may have infiltrated recently in Doda. There are 2 terror groups, the PAFF and the Lashkar, as far as the Poonch Rajouri region is concerned, and in Doda, this area, Doda Kishtwar, we have Jaish terrorists. Mr. Swain is back. Mr. Swain, namaste. Thank you. We lost you in between, but you were telling us the basic assessment. My question to you was, sir, that we've lost about 9 brave hearts in the last 2-3 weeks. We've got 48 soldiers in the last, across the forces, 48 brave hearts in 32 months. Something's happening which should not happen. Have you been able to identify why? How are they able to get behind enemy lines?
Well, as I said, that the Jammu region has a very different kind of a terrain and topography, and by using certain select, old narcotics smugglers and certain limited OGW structures, they have managed to breach our infiltration, anti-infiltration, or the border and the LOC, but they're very limited in number, as I have been saying. But yes, the losses they have been able to cause is essentially because of the terror. Now, the information gap between the information and the action is something which we are working, and we're working very fast. And we are devising the mechanisms whereby, the information flow from the common villagers is converted into action. Now, these are certain operational details. You see, in between 1995 to 2006, almost for 10 and 11 years, this kind of terrorism was propped up by the adversary, the Pakistani side, in Jammu region. In these very places where we are now talking of, the Rajouri, Poonch, and stretches of Riyasi, and Doda, Kathua, Udhampur, all of these places, in this stretch of about 10 to 12 years, they had truly there have been large number of massacres of the community specific massacres have taken place. But you see, we tried to get our act together there, and over a period of time, when it was crushed and when it was eliminated for good, with the help of a very well-oiled, coordinated structure of village defense groups, special police officers recruited by the J&K police, assisted by operating base camps at heights. We had, over a period of time, we abandoned them, we vacated them because of changed situations. Now we are trying to do something better. So this gap which they have found is something which they would find it very fast changing against them. And it is only a question of time that before the summer ends, they would be actually seeing a very, very different scenario against them.
Where we look forward to that, sir. But I just quickly want to understand, what's the adversary's thought here? Why have they chosen this region or this theatre for their action? And is there a cause for concern that they are getting perhaps insider support, OGWs? Are they present in this Jammu region?
Well, there are two parts to your question, Anand. One is, of course, you said as to why Jammu. Well, you see, it's only an assessment. I mean, there will be other agencies who would be specialists in really finding out hard evidence to it. But the incidental and the collateral evidence that one has with Jammu and Kashmir police suggests that, you see, very successfully the terror ecosystem was dealt with in Kashmir, in which the recruitment fell, the local support base dwindled very dramatically, and both in terms of street violence and ability of the terror networks to be able to carry out incidents also dramatically came down. Naturally, where here the situation is two things they are counting, two things they have factored. The enemy has factored two things in our assessment. One is the terror, and the second is the demography. We have a mixed population. We have in several districts we have a combination of both communities, and they think that they would try to create a situation of a intercommunity relationship, creating additional challenges for the Indian state. Now, this is something where the J&K police, because of its own composite strength, and we are certain, I'm absolutely sure that just this terrain factor and this 3 or 4 months of window, that the heights are open, the grasslands are open, vast ridges, tens and hundreds of kilometers of forest land and broken land where people have gone off. They would all come back to their villages by October end. That is the end of it, So what we intend to do is, but then in this very 3, 4 or 5 months, we would change our tactics of movement and operations. We are in close dialogue with our army partner and our CAPF partner, and some of it cannot obviously be discussed in open forum. Having said that, what I'm suggesting is, the second part to the question is that what is the extent of the support base? I can say it with authority and with absolute honesty that it is nothing anywhere close to Kashmir in terms of, there is no separatist feeling as such. You see, there are criminal elements who are in lieu of money, like any large society, you would find moles who would accept money. There are, especially because it's a border area, and there have been instances of, long smuggling routes are there, and recent times they have switched over to narcotics as a measure, and the convergence of narcotics and terrorism in terms of funding of terrorism has come about. So those channels have been activated, and those channels, there are very few and far between. They have been activated, so that we accept that there is a limited OGW kind of a thing. But the popular support is something which is absolutely not there. So we will leverage our popular public support in favor of us. We will leverage our village defense groups. We intend to strengthen them across the, length and breadth. And we would like to arm them better with better weaponry and co-opt them. And of course, together, a very well-oiled structure would be there when the information flow and the action thereof, in a manner in which the surprise which they are having now, because of the height, because of the mountains, and because of the people having gone up there for these 4 months of temporary grazing and yes, so that advantage to them, we are certainly going to squeeze and make them fall into our net.
Sir, I know you're in the thick of things, so my final question to you is that the Supreme Court has given a deadline of 30th of September, and that responsibility rests in terms of providing security on the shoulders of the Jammu and Kashmir police along with the CAPF and the army for the assembly elections to be conducted. Is there a worry there, or do you believe that this is a blip?
You see, I mean, when it comes to elections, we have already demonstrated that in the parliamentary elections, we have been able to ensure that the security not only to the candidates, but to the voters and to the hardware and the software of the entire electoral process was provided for. And we are determined about that. And when it comes to holding of the assembly elections, similar kind of synergy and similar kind of mobilizations and similar kind of activations of the SOPs will be there, in which there will be absolutely no quarter left to anyone to fiddle with this process. So ability of the enemy to cause a loss over 10,000 feet high in a mountain area which is temporarily open for grasslands is something which if they are, I mean, that situation will certainly not happen in the habitation centers and the villages, and will certainly not allow anyone to disrupt the election process.
So how soon before we start striking back and start counting their bodies?
It has started as we speak, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. That's very encouraging. Thank you very much to all, to you and to your entire team and forces. Hats off, sir. Our salute and support always remains. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.
So that was Shri R.R. Swain very clearly saying that the strike back has already started, even as we speak. And it's time that we start counting those foreign terrorists and their bodies very, very soon. That's what's going to happen. But the larger question that we are asking here is that this design, whatever is happening, does this now push up the need for a thorough surgical cleanup within and also right at the doorstep? Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, political commentator, scientist with us, Nilufar Masood, leader of the National Conference with us, Ahmed Ayaz, political analyst with us, and Sushant Sareen, senior fellow, ORF with us. Namaste, Jai Hind to everybody. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience. We had a power outage at Swain Saab's area, so that's why there was a little bit of a delay in getting him back and speaking with him. But thankfully, everything is well, and we, all of you, I hope, heard what he had to say. Nilufar Masood ji, do you believe that there needs to be perhaps a thorough cleanup? We need to first get our act together. Somebody is helping these elements. Somebody is letting them come in and also survive here. So should we address that first, or should we address the fact that they're coming in the first place? Let's stop that. Where do you stand?
Anand, I was just listening to the statement which has been given by Mr. J.D, but you must have heard the earlier statement which he made while there was one orientation program going on.
Yeah.
Well, that is very unfortunate what statement he has made before the young minds, in fact, the fresh minds, who many of them are yet to vote in the assembly elections. And I think there are many reasons which are responsible for this surge. And you could see after the abrogation of Article 370, we were told that everything will be fine, but we have not seen that peaceful environment. So there is, you have seen the area which was peaceful for some 2 decades. Now there is surge in infiltration and then terror attacks also. Instead of accepting the failure that yes, we are responsible, that we have really failed to give such environment to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which we have promised on 5th August 2019, we are shifting the burden from the people who are at helm of affairs onto those people who carry forward democratic system in the Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. Swine, because you must have heard the
No, let me
statement,
just
he
play
said
that out
it
because
is
you have
only
referred
the
for it twice. If you allow me just a minute, we'll play that out. Let's just play out the statement that he made
yeah, sure,
at
please.
the thing. And there is a reason why he made that statement. He was putting things in perspective. The serving officer in uniforms agreed to do a live interview with us. So we steered clear of the politics. But this is a statement that he made. Yeah.
The full truth is, Pakistan successfully came to infiltrate all important aspects of our civil society. Thanks to the regional so-called mainstream politics in the valley, there is overwhelming evidence to show that many had honed the art of running with the hare and hunting with the hound to a near science that left both the common men and the security men bewildered, frightened, and confused. Visiting homes of killed terrorists and expressing sympathy in public became the new normal. While elimination of new recruits to terrorism was allowed and tacitly encouraged, those who facilitated the recruitment, arranged finances, were never investigated. And it was forbidden to even go near Jamaat-e-Islami that provided the religious and ideological justification to the perfidies of the terrorists and the Buriyat.
What is it that he said that was not a statement of fact, Niloufar Masood?
Anand, if anybody is involved in any terror sport, police is not barred to catch those people. Police is not barred.
Police is not
But
barred now.
maligning, they are not barred.
They're not barred now.
You can take
What he
legal
said is what
action
was the
against
situation
all
in the
those
past.
persons.
He
And
was saying
let
about,
me-
he was
let me
talking about the
complete.
situation, what he was talking in the past. Yes,
Anand,
please
let
complete.
me complete. Let me complete.
Ji, please complete.
Kindly see the situation, how he has made such a statement. This is a irresponsible statement, where he is maligning all the people who are in the mainstream. This frivolous statement, in fact, undermines the sacrifice of the people. In fact, it is the Jammu Kashmir National Conference who have sacrificed it. More than 3,000 workers of Jammu Kashmir National Conference, they have sacrificed their life for this country. You cannot just insult them
their
by
service
saying
is
that
not
it
being
the
undermined.
mainstream
Their
people who
service,
are
their
responsible
service,
for all this.
their service, their dedication to the country, to the national flag is never undermined. But the fact of the matter is, what he stated was not
undermine
directed
it.
at
These
any one
statements
person.
undermine it.
What he stated, was it a statement?
should be
Was it a
apologistic
one minute?
that
One
while
minute, one
saying
minute,
this,
Niloufar ji,
making
one
this
minute.
statement,
Let me
you
just
cannot
bring in
just
Sushant.
blame people
Let
and
me
you
just
can
bring in.
just have the narrow
one minute.
escape.
Let me just bring in Sushant Sareen. Was it a frivolous statement, or perhaps the one which perhaps with the most brevity and well thought out statement that has come from somebody who's seen what's happening? Mr. Swain is not coming to Jammu and Kashmir for the first time. He served here and he's gone through the thick of it. And what did he say that was wrong? Did we not see Netas go and sit there and play this double game? That those who were bringing and those who were hiring, those who were recruiting got protection, and those who got killed, they were celebrated and they were being hailed as martyrs, and there was a huge thing that was created. Weren't these the same Netas who are crying foul today, Sushant Sareen, who tried to and create and whip up the whole sentiment around Burhanwani, who tried to ensure that certain elements, he's named Jamaat-e-Islami very clearly that they will not be touched. There were others that it was very clear that you cannot touch them.
You cannot hold responsible
No, are
everybody.
these not, is this a frivolous statement, or are these statements of fact made with a lot of brevity? Yes.
Are you putting this question
No,
to
no,
me?
no, I'm asking Sushant Sareen. Yes,
Okay,
Sushant.
fine.
Anand, I think it's a statement of undiluted fact. It's a very blunt statement, and it's not a political statement. I think what he has said is something, Anand, on your shows, people like me and many others have been saying this exact stuff. That you've been, there was this entire ecosystem. You had the government actually sponsoring media organizations which were peddling separatist propaganda. You had political leaders who were hobnobbing with separatists, were being soft on them, who were telling the law enforcement agencies that go easy on some of these guys. We saw in Kashmir that the separatists were being enriched and the people who stood by the Indian nation, by the Indian constitution, were actually left like orphans, because even the political parties would not bother about them. Yes, what Ms. Masoodi is saying is correct. The National Conference did play a very stellar role later on, but there have been elements within the National Conference, and even at the top levels of the National Conference, there's been an element of doublespeak. They've been, as the phrase goes, running with the hare and hunting with the hound. That you've always, had somewhat of an ambiguous kind of a stand on many issues. So, and forget the National Conference. Let's talk about the PDP, which was in government to the eternal shame of the BJP in collaboration with the BJP. What was the kind of system they were running? Mehbooba Mufti took pride in the fact that she was a soft separatist. She is the person who actually, emboldened the Jamaat for the Jamaat-e-Islami to spread its network all over the place. And the recent statements on the Jamaat chief that no, we are very much ready to take part in the political process. It's a fraud which is being played. This is the same Jamaat which, whenever the pressure mounts on it, becomes reasonableness personified, and whenever the pressure is eased, go back to doing their grisly business which they are infamous for. So the fact of the matter is, what the DGP said was absolutely correct. I can't understand why Ms. Masood is having such pangs hearing him, because he didn't name any political party. So unless it's a kind of a guilt complex that you think that he was targeting things at you, it wasn't the case. We all know, Anand, this says
guilty conscience pricks is something which perhaps that
I must
that adage perhaps did it stick, because those who made the noise, perhaps he didn't even name anybody. Yes.
See, my problem has been that the government in the center, Congress government earlier, the various other political governments in the center, including the BJP,
yes,
have adopted a kind of a very soft kind of an approach in how they deal. And by soft, I don't mean that you bludgeon the state government, but in the sense that there are certain red lines which state government should not be permitted to cross. And they gave a very, very long rope to the state government and they were never really held to account. And for that, I blame the central government as much as I blame the state government.
See, here
should have been done.
Here,
and
Sushant,
this is the time the state governments were dependent on the center for a lot of support.
But Sushantji, this is what I'm saying, that wheels within the wheels, that there were those who made this a terror business. It became the business of terror, and a lot of people, for them, their be-all and end-all, their entire existence, their entire wajood, and of course, the richest, the largest, the amount of money that's been pumped into this, keeping this ecosystem, perhaps did it suit them that they will try and run with the hare and hunt with the hounds. Exactly like what Mr. Swain said in that speech of his. Dr. Ranganathan, and then I'll come back to the others. Yes.
Good evening, Anand, and good evening to my fellow panelists. I have very briefly, because I think one other panelist, Ahmed Ji, hasn't yet spoken, a couple of points to make. Number one, as I've always said this, Anand, Kashmir has been turned into a snakes and ladders game. The ladders are provided by Pakistan and the snakes are provided by Indians. Now, I'm calling them Indians, but I wonder if they themselves think of themselves as Indians. Their first allegiance is to religion, second is to Pakistan, third is to China, and fourth is to dynasty. These are the same people who were itching to foment trouble, despite the knowledge that after the abrogation, quote-unquote abrogation, because Sushantji is sitting here, he scolds people when I say abrogation of 370, but after 370 was amended / abrogated, there has been an 87% decline in stone throwing incidents, 80% decline in terror incidents, 46% decline in youth joining terror organizations. But at the same time, 48% increase in ceasefire violations of Pakistan. And that is one of the reasons why in the last 1 month we've seen dozen incidents. So Kashmir, as I think the NC leader said, or no, I'm sorry, Mr. Swain said, is safer than ironically Jammu. But I want to ask this question. Agar phir se Hindus are driven out of Jammu and Kashmir, this time from Jammu, where will they go? They were driven out of the valley and a lot of them settled in Jammu. Now if they're driven out because of extremism and jihadism, they have nowhere else to go. Has the Indian state, thought about this? Number two, when we talk about the state elections, please keep in mind, there are other union territories as well. Are they not democracies? Are they not democratic setup in our country? Are they anyway worse off than other states? If there is a hurry to re-establish the statehood Jammu and Kashmir, one must think very carefully, because the same people, and I'll give you a couple of examples here, none of those people who erupted and wanted riots and were fomenting trouble after 370 abrogation, none of them apologized after the Supreme Court actually said the 370 abrogation was to stay. None of them apologized. Shall I give you two examples? It was the NC leader, Mr. Farooq Abdullah, who said they want to remove 370. We will show them how 370 can be removed. Allah would want that we separate from India. These are his statements. And Ms. Mehbooba Mufti, who can forget a statement that rivers of blood will flow? These are the people who are fomenting trouble. And I just fear, if we hurry into the statehood, we might actually see the resurgence of this terror.
There is no hurry.
Not only in Kashmir, but in Jammu.
See, there is no hurry. But here is the thing, that there needs to be a democratic setup and democracy must prevail. Ballot must prevail over the bullet. And there is a reason why, and it's a Supreme Court mandate that the assembly elections of the Union Territory must be conducted before the 30th of September. And that's an undertaking also that's been given. So if that can be given, and that's an assurance that he has said that we got the parliamentary elections, we'll do the state elections or the Union Territory, the assembly elections. And it's in the interest of every single entity, every single person that this happens, because whatever they want has to be the will of the people. And if the will of the people has to be decided and a leader is elected, then that leader will have to behave in the interest of the people under the national flag. That is very clear. There is no other flag and there is no other aspect. You have to do it under the tricolor, under the national flag.
You remember Mehbooba Mufti's statement that she refuses to fly the Indian flag until the J&K flag is restored. See, that is her statement.
But that politics was defeated too. She stands a loser today. She's not won that election. She didn't win the parliamentary election. She didn't win it. There is a mood of the people also, but Mr. Ahmed Ayaz, this is the concern. The concern is, are there those entities even within us who believe कि पहले धंधा अच्छा होता था, पैसे नहीं आ रहे हैं, अब धंधा कम हो गया. Let's try and revive this business of terror. Should they not be cleaned up, sir? Should they not be held to account? And are they the ones who are involved in trying to help these foreign terrorists, these enemies on our soil? Ji, thank you for your patience. Ji, please, I won't interrupt you.
I don't no issue. I think that must not be happening now. See, considering factually the reduction in the incidence of militancy and then what other things like stone throwing, whatever, and then some sort of activity which have started, and then the tourists in large numbers come. So that it's the point that what you say is that there is something going on. But taking a point from what R.S. Swan, the DGP of Jammu Kashmir, said is, he is with all inputs and be as such denied. Political party always to see that their vote banks are safe, and they try to keep their vote banks safe, and to achieve that they possibly can go to that to any extent also, and said about it maybe true also, and then there are so many other parties naming anyone. That try to make people to fight each other, and then to get into Hindu-Muslim issue. I mean, this is all to keep food banks intact. Well, that way it cannot be denied that it must not be happening. The point is whether DGP as official is supposed to give a statement To me, it looks that if there is like this, right now, even in Jammu and Kashmir, I must tell you that even lawyers are, slapped PSCs and the journalists.
No,
And
but there is
if more,
an entire story about and the cases are now flooding out of how the Jammu and Kashmir High
right,
Court and lawyers within the Jammu and Kashmir High Court acted against the state, acted against the country, acted against the
Anand,
interests of Bharat.
Anand,
And there are those who are
no, Anand, I tell you,
under scrutiny for what they were doing there, and how they try to manufacture cases and how they try to side with those who are inimical to the interests, larger interests of Bharat. But I have limited time. Two questions. One question to Nilufar Masood and Sushant Sareen, please follow up on that. Do you believe, as a party which is active and which has a huge amount of ground support on ground, and Mr. Omar Abdullah and Farooq Abdullah ji are all former chief ministers? Let me ask you this, ma'am. One of the aspects, do you believe you will support a hard, heavy, thorough crackdown and cleanup against anybody who's acting against the interests of our country? Because that's something Mr. Swain said, that you would carry and you would pick up the foot soldiers, but you would not
Anand,
you would
have
not
your
attack the
own
mastermind.
interpretation.
Whoever it
Anand,
is, I'm just saying, whoever it is.
See, Anand, let me speak now. You might have your own interpretation, and you may interpret the statement of Mr. DGP in your own way. But the message which has been given by the said statement, that has not been taken in a right perspective by all the people who are in the mainstream and who have been vehemently pleading the faith in the Indian constitution and the democracy itself. It has never been taken in that way, number one. Number two, just now Rangaswamy was speaking about
Mr. Ranganathan,
the restoration of the... Yes, Mr.
Yeah, his name is also Anand, so you can say Anand. Yeah.
Okay, I'll say Anand. He was just speaking about the restoration of the statehood. I think it is Mr. Prime Minister and the Mr. Home Minister who have already promised it to we people that it will be restored very soon. So I don't think it is in his domain to speak about whether it should be restored or it should not.
But
be
that's his opinion, and you may differ with that opinion, but he's got the right to have that opinion.
I differ with his views.
Yeah,
I differ
please.
with his.
Yeah, you're welcome to do
Yes,
that. Yeah.
I differ with his views.
Ji.
Whatever he has said. We never had, as a Jammu Kashmir National Conference being the worker of that, we never had double standards, as has been said by him, that there are people who are having double standards. We don't have any double standards. So Shant is staying here. He just spoke about people who have in fact given sacrifices for their country. Yes, there can be black sheep anywhere. I don't mean that we have any black sheep in our party, because if that ought to have been, they might have been arrested and the law should have taken its own course. Anybody who is doing anything against the interests of the India, we stand with India. We stand with the concept
Perfect,
of India.
ma'am. Then here is the case.
India.
Sorry, I'm
Anybody
interrupting you because I'm limited time. I just want to go for
there have been
another 60 seconds to
there
Sushant
have
Sareen.
been-
I take that and I welcome that statement. Here is the case, ma'am. If you believe there are black sheep everywhere, I'm saying go after the black sheep no matter who they are. Whether they are within the forces, whether they are within the administration, whether they are within political parties, or whether they are acting as outfits which claim to be social outfits, but they are actually working against the interests of whoever they are. Nobody is an untouchable. Anybody and everybody working against the interest of our country, and if there is proof against them, they should be accounted for. They should be weeded out. The cleanup has to start from within. Let all political parties take that position rather than taking offense to a statement that's been made in right earnest. Sushant Sareen, agree, disagree, be it within the army, be it within the Jammu Kashmir police, be it within the CAPF, be it within the political parties, mainstream parties, otherwise be it Jamaat-e Islami, any person, be it the administration, bureaucracy, any person who is acting against the interest of our country should be weeded out. That's how cleanup happens. Because they have entered from somewhere, no? Somebody had the job to guard those places. Somebody had the job to alert the others that they have entered. Somebody had the job to show thermal imaging, etc., other stuff. Somebody had the job to collect human int. Somebody had the job to go ahead and neutralize and do the pest control that is required. Somewhere some failures happened, gaps have appeared. Whoever is responsible for those gaps should be accounted for.
No, all that is, see, that is precisely the problem, isn't it? The politicians will come on public platforms and say all the right things and make all the right noises. It's what happens behind the scenes, that when actually action has to be taken on ground against some of the dubious and despicable elements, that is when they start getting cold feet. Or they will only act if, for example, they feel that their own political position is in jeopardy, if they feel that they can get some kind of a political advantage. So, for example, you look at what Mehbooba Mufti did when Burhan Wani was killed. Was Burhan Wani some kind of a student icon, somebody who had gone to an IIT or MIT, discovered something new? He was a terrorist, for God's sake, right? Now, when this terrorist is killed, and he was a man who was calling for other people's murder, when this terrorist is killed, what is the reaction from the PDP and in particular Mehbooba Mufti?
Right.
So the problem is that when action is taken, the politicians get cold feet because they have created an environment in which they have not taken an unambiguous stand.
Right.
You know, they have always operated in a kind of a grey zone where they are with the separatists also, they're appeasing to them also, they play the nationalist card also, so they are all over the place.
Right.
And that is why they tend to fall between stools. And that is where the problem comes in. And the instructions which are then given to the police force, which comes directly under their control, are of the nature that nothing really seems to work. So when people crib that, look, you know, you have removed 370, has the situation improved? Anand Ranganathan very correctly said, yes, the situation has improved. But I think we've also been mistaken in declaring a victory prematurely. And the fact of the matter remains that while 370 was there, the situation was far, far, far worse than what it is.
Sir, this point is, sir, there were people at the center who believed that this terror ecosystem is good. Because it's good because it makes them relevant, and they were also making perhaps I don't know what they were making. Were they profiting somewhere or the other? They were making, I don't know. But the fact is that it cannot be that it was only limited to the state, the erstwhile state of Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh. It had to be, and whoever is responsible, they played with national interest. They played with our futures. They played with our youth. They played with trying to into the hands of the enemy by playing this dangerous game. And that should stop. It has to stop. We cannot move forward, and we cannot dream of a Viksit Bharat with this toe prick every time. We cannot. We've got to move forward. Thank you. Thank you very much to all our panelists. I've got to wind up on that note. When we come back, we take a look at the US elections. Donald Trump has announced his vice presidential candidate, and Vance has an India Connect. Now, is that going to be the game changer? Stay with us.
And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
My fellow Americans, I want to speak to you tonight about the need for us to lower the temperature in our politics. And to remember, while we may disagree, we are not enemies. We're neighbors, we're friends, co-workers, citizens, and most importantly, we're fellow Americans. We must stand together. Yesterday's shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania calls on all of us to take a step back, take stock of where we are, how we go forward from here. Thankfully, former Trump is not seriously injured. I spoke with him last night. I'm grateful. He's doing well, and Jill and I keep him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victims who was killed. Corey was a husband, a father, a volunteer firefighter, a hero, sheltering his family from those bullets. We should all hold his family and all those injured in our prayers. Earlier today, I spoke about an ongoing investigation. We do not know the motive of the shooter yet, We don't know his opinions or affiliations. We don't know whether he had help or support or if he communicated with anyone else. Law enforcement professionals, as I speak, are investigating those questions. There is no place in America for this kind of violence, or for any violence ever. Period. No exceptions. We can't allow this violence to be normalized. You know, the political record in this country has gotten
Back on, and former U.S. President and Republican presidential pick Donald Trump has selected Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate for the upcoming presidential polls in November. If Trump wins, Vance will be the next Vice President of the United States of America. J.D. Vance, who's the author of best-selling memoir on what ails the white working class, Hillbilly LG, has an Indian connection. Vance, 39 years old, is married to Indian-American Usha Chilukuri Vance, who traces her origins to Andhra Pradesh in Bharat. Mr. Trump had relatively little personal contact with Vance, but then Vance came to his notice with his presidential campaign and also his presence on Tucker Carlson tonight. The 39-year-old Republican has also a notable personal connection to Bharat through Usha Chilukuri, who is of Indian origin. Usha and J.D. Vance first crossed paths at Yale Law School and later wed in Kentucky in 2014, where a Hindu priest conducted a separate ceremony, as reported by the New York Times. In an interview, Vance attributed his journey of faith to Usha's Hindu beliefs, which played a significant role despite his Catholic upbringing. Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow ORF, stays on with us. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, scientist and commentator, with us. Professor Peter Kuznick, Director, Nuclear Studies Institute, American University, is with us. And Amy Tarkanian, former Nevada State GOP chairwoman, is with us. Namaste. Thank you very much for your time. Amy, let me first ask you, choice of J.D. Vance, did it surprise many, or was he quite obvious?
I think to the devoted MAGA base, he was the exact choice that they were hoping for. I think to those who were maybe on the fence or still in question, they were hoping maybe for somebody like Marco Rubio or even Doug Burgum. So I think it was a little bit of both.
4 decades separate the two. Is that gap going to be quite awning if they were to assume office post the elections?
I think the age gap is welcoming. The fact that you now have completely different generations, where you have one who's more towards the boomer generation and then the millennial. I think the fact that JD, one of the pros is that he does bring youth and vigor. He is energetic, and he also has a young family. And I think that's something that the American people are very welcoming to.
The Indian connection, and Donald Trump has also been trying to woo the Indian American, voter base. What's the thought process there, and is that going to make a difference this time?
Well, it's interesting because it won't be the first time that we have somebody with Indian connections. We also had Governor Nikki Haley, we had Governor Bobby Jindal, and so I think the fact that he is married to a woman with Indian connections, of course, it's always welcome. It's a bonus. I don't know if it's going to be the deciding factor, but the fact that you now have 2 white men at the top of the ticket, I think having somebody such as JD's wife is only more than beneficial.
Professor Peter Kuznick, how would you see this? Trump's choice, and do they clearly have the advantage compared to the Democrats between Biden and Kamala Harris?
They clearly do have an advantage at this moment, but there's a long time before this election, and we've seen how quickly things can change. Now, this question of having a wife of Indian ethnicity, certainly he's running against, if the ticket remains the same as it is now, he's running against a woman who's of Indian origin. So that will not be an advantage in that way. What Trump has done is chosen an ideologue who's very much in the MAGA camp. And as Amy was suggesting, he could have broadened his appeal, but instead he seems very confident right now and is doubling down on somebody who thinks along the same lines that he does when it comes to immigration, when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to abortion. So the question is this going to widen his appeal, or is it going to just reinforce it with the people he already has on his side? And I think that that's the more likely scenario.
Did his choice surprise you? Because many did not tout him as a front runner and they didn't think that Trump would go for someone so young.
It didn't surprise me at all. This is a safe choice for Trump. Vance will subordinate himself to Trump, but Vance also is very smart. As Amy says, he's much younger, represents a different generation, and but he's a real ideologue. So there is a potential risk, because if Trump wants to broaden his appeal to more moderate voters, then Vance would not be a smart choice. But Trump is calculating that he already has this election won, and therefore he can go with somebody who's not going to broaden his appeal right now.
So just dig in and just dig deeper into the MAGA, voter base, because he believes he's got a fair share of the moderates. Dr. Ranganathan, your thoughts? J.D. Vance, the India Connect? Quietly growing Indian influence or the Indian-American influence in US politics?
Of Vance, I might not be a fan, but Usha certainly is. I just thought I'll just put that in. No, a couple of things out here. Number one, just the other day, Anand, I remember we were talking about the reason why Trump was shot and an assassination attempt made on him was because in America, people have dehumanized him. And one of the ways by which Trump has been dehumanized is that people start calling him Hitler. And surprise, surprise, the Trump's vice president candidate has called Trump Hitler. So I don't know what to make of that. I think Trump has gone ahead and done what nobody else would have done except Trump. Vance actually called voters as idiots if you were to vote for Trump. He called Trump a Hitler. So, it's entirely unsurprising that Trump has come up with this name. Having said that, I think, they say a week is a long time in politics, and we're certainly talking about a couple of years, if not more. So, yes, Vance can take a U-turn, and he certainly has. But of the issues that I think the professor and Amy mentioned, yes, he is more of a conservative, certainly, than even Trump is. So, correct. I think this going forward augurs well for the quote-unquote Republican vote bank. As far as how good he would be as a partner of Trump, well, if we were to disregard all his statements that he's made on Trump and to look for a fresher beginning, then yes, maybe this is a good team.
But somebody who goes for the kill, somebody who's aggressive, somebody who does not hold back, pull back or pull his punches, and when you're in the fight, you're in the fight. And after that, it's all forgotten because it's politics. That's how you got to stick up your candidature, and you got to be aggressive. Sometimes leaders like that. They like a certain level of aggression. They cite a certain level of candor and perhaps a demeanor which perhaps looks back and tells them, oh, this is a younger me. Sushant Sareen, is that what's happening? Is Trump looking back and saying, had I been into politics at 39, this is how I would have been? Or is he making very carefully crafted choices? He's giving the cues to the right people at the right time or the right constituency.
Look, I think in many ways, Trump is a pretty underestimated kind of a guy. I think his presidency wasn't as bad as many people make it out to be. The economy did well. He was able to do something which nobody else had done for the 75 years, Abraham Accords. There was a certain amount of, he was a bit erratic. There were a lot of things which, one could say that
he was abrasive
not correct.
In his demeanor. So that rubbed a lot of people off, ticked a lot of people off.
Look, maybe that kind of attitude does not stand in international politics, and people are much more sensitive. But if you've lived in America, you've interacted with many Americans, and I'm not talking about the perfumed lot. I'm talking about the normal, ordinary guy. He's very much in your face. He's very blunt, very open. Trump is like that, which is why he has a connect with the people, number one. Number two, look, politics is something in which, for example, Hillary Clinton was taking a lot of pot shots at Barack Obama. Later on, ended up as his Secretary of State. So this kind of stuff happens in politics. So because Vance said something some years back does not mean he cannot evolve and change his mind. Okay. Number three, I really find it strange. I thought this is a malady only in Indian politics, but it seems that, what is caste in India is color in America. Everything is now seen from a ethnicity perspective or a prism, and quite clearly, I don't really think that this is the right way to go about it. You look for the best candidate. Frankly, Vance, from whatever little I have seen of him, he's articulate, he's a smart guy, he's articulate, he's practical, he's pragmatic, and he is not a bleeding racist. The very fact that he's married to a lady of Indian origin will tell you that he's not a racist, that he's a devout Catholic but has no problem in living with a wife who's a devout Hindu, also tells you something about the guy. So he's not a lunatic who's out to convert kind of a deal. And from what he has said, frankly speaking, he sounds extremely sensible. Whether people agree with him or not is a different matter, but his take, for example, on the Ukraine war, I think it's a sensible thing he's talking about on a range of other issues. Now, you can keep saying, oh no, America must fight in 50 theaters. But he's giving you the practical thing that, look, if you have a big looming conflict in East Asia, then you need to, settle some of the other conflicts which are raging, whether in the Middle East or in Europe. And other people, your partners out there, need to pitch in much more than what they have done so far. How is that not a sensible thing to say? How is that not a strategic thing to say? So I think he's a smart choice. I think he might be able to bring a certain amount of order to the erraticness of Trump, although nobody can vouch for that. But I think, yes, the wind is behind the Republicans right now. But let's wait and see.
Let's wait and watch. But final word from Amy. How did he work this? Because the New York Times has put a very interesting article that he chose to woo those who are backing Trump or those who are Trump's champions rather than Trump himself. How did he do this? And was he smart in the way he approached this?
I'm going to disagree because I think now President Trump is going to have to clean up a mess after some of J.D. Vance's past statements. And some of them were made not too long ago. And Ukraine was mentioned, and he actually said he doesn't care what happens in Ukraine. And that's unacceptable and a reckless statement in itself. And also, too, the fact that he's now on video in an interview saying that women who are in troublesome marriages, even some that are violent, should stick it out if they have children. That's not going to go over very well with women voters. The fact that he is very pro-life, which is fine, I'm pro-life, but he goes as far as saying abortions should not be allowed with any exception. Abortion is going to be at the top of the ticket across the nation. That's going to cause some problems. So I think also, too, he's going to be the pit bull right now. And President Trump is very smartly listening to his strategists and trying to remain a statesman and remain as calm and change his tone, which is great. And so now J.D., though, on the other hand, can come in swinging, and he can be the pit bull for President Trump while he tries to remain, the statesman.
We'll see whether that works with the American voter and that works for the Republicans. I've run out of time, Dr. Ranganathan and Peter Kuznick, but wonderful speaking, and hope we continue these conversations in the run-up to the elections in the U.S. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Winding up the right stand on that note. Namaste.
Time to cool it down. We all have a responsibility to do that. Yes, we have deeply felt strong disagreements. The stakes in this election are enormously high. Disagreement is inevitable in American democracy. It's part of human nature. But politics must never be a literal battlefield, or God forbid, a killing field. I believe politics ought to be an arena for peaceful debate, to pursue justice, to make decisions guided by the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. We stand for an America, not of extremism and fury, but of decency and grace. I'll continue to speak out strongly for our democracy, stand up for our Constitution and the rule of law, to call for action at the ballot box, no violence on our streets, That's how democracy should work. We debate and disagree. We compare and contrast the character of the candidates, the records, the issues, the agenda, the vision for America. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box. So tonight, I'm asking every American to recommit, to think about it. What's made America so special? Here in America, everyone must be treated with dignity and respect, and hate must have no safe harbor. Here in America, we need to get out of our silos, where we only listen to those with whom we agree, where misinformation is rampant, where foreign actors fan the flames of our division to shape the outcomes consistent with their interests, not ours. Let's remember, here in America, while unity is the most elusive of goals right now, nothing is more important for us now than standing together. We can do this. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Good afternoon. Last night, I spoke with Donald Trump. I'm sincerely grateful that he's doing well and recovering, and we had a short but good conversation.
News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio.
Good evening. Welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. We're coming to you live from the CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio. The encounter in Doda is continuing. It's been over 24 hours now. 4 soldiers, including an officer of the Indian Army, are confirmed dead. 3 other Jawans are also dead. This is the 10th attack in Jammu and Kashmir just in the last month and a half or so. Most of these attacks are now happening in the Jammu, Poonch, Rajouri, Doda regions, which is south of the Pir Panjal. There are fewer attacks in the Kashmir Valley, perhaps because of the heightened security there in the aftermath of the abrogation of Article 370. Is Jammu now fast becoming the new terror battleground? Are these repeated attacks, particularly in the last month and a half, proof of both an intelligence failure and an operational failure?